allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Has council had the opportunity to review the meeting minutes from June 6th? If so, I'll ask for a motion.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second. Motion from Robin, second from Becky. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Any changes to this evening's agenda? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the set agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion from Rick, second from Robin. Those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Guests in open forum. Seeing no one, we'll move into committee reports. EDA.
EDA. We met on June 12th, right here. We had a monthly market report update. Sales continue to be strong. They still haven't solved the inventory problem, but sales are continuing even though the interest rates are higher. We had a presentation from Mark, a lot of detail, and that was about the originally when it was in May. This was prior to the legislative session adjourning, and so we were up in the air. It was kind of the same information that we had in April, I believe it was, where we talked about the potential scenarios if we were to have no aid from the state for our power plant closing versus the bill that we had talked about or anything in between. And so that, of course, that's when that was scheduled. We were still up in the air, but then since at our meeting here, that had been since finalized. So Mark gave us a good detailed presentation on that, which is really helpful for EDA because we may see that information more, but EDA is not as plugged in on that, so it was good for them to see that. They were very appreciative. We had a update again on the BREC. This is a refresh back from Virginia, so we had an update on that. Also had an update on the business incubation project, which is it's in the beginning stages, and it's a kind of a potential collaboration with the county. So a little bit of an update on that. That's all I got.
All right, Public Works, we met June 14th last week, and several of our items are on this evening's agenda, but I'll cover those that we are not on the agenda. Recycling Day recap. Staff is awaiting the invoices from the vendors in order to close out and give us a full recap, but we did have about 204 total vehicles come through, and roughly 96 of those were for just city residents that were taken. Township had 74, and then others that fell within the county were roughly 34 vehicles. So 2023 project updates. I thought a couple of project updates. Again, these are as of last week. Obviously, they're out working hard at all of our road projects. So County Road 53 is in full swing. If you imagine, that's the road over taking you down to Snuffy's Landing. It has the first layer of pavement. It sounded like pavement. And then the final lift is to be either done this week or next week. It's slotted within here pretty soon. Today. Oh, wow. All right. County Road 53 to Edgewood Street. That is the process of the wrapping up. They're wrapping that up. The water line from County Road 8, and they're ensuring there's connectivity. They were going ahead and pressurizing it along the way to make sure that it worked as they moved along. County Road 53 to 8 also has the lift station is in progress of being put into place. And I should note, all of our projects, all of the affected residents have received letters illustrating what's happening and keeping them appraised of the construction project. That was something that was extremely important to council for the last couple of years. So I just wanted to assure we did verify they are being appraised of what's happening. Streets staff agenda, that is on our consent agenda, sorry. We have County Road 53 to Edgewood, Project 4. I believe Phil is talking about that a little bit later. Parkview Storm, we got an update on that, and that is on our agenda tonight. We talked about the rail spur, the industrial clarify 1 and 2 coating, which is also on our agenda for today. And then wellhead number 7 and 8 is in operation. Both of them are up and going, so that's great news there. So that completes that. How about recreation, park and recreation?
Park and Rec was scheduled to meet last Thursday. We did not have enough people to have a meeting. So we just briefly talked about the projects that are on the agenda tonight.
Excellent. Any other committees that were missed? Nope. All right, we'll move into board committee and consultant reports. The rail spur maintenance with Mr. Lisson. Chris, you are actually on for majority of our,
Yep, I sure am. Yes, can I have a chair? All right, first item I have for you guys tonight is an RCA and resolution for some rail spur maintenance. So each year, we have a company contractor come out and inspect the rail spur for the city, just see what kind of condition is, if there's any repairs or maintenance that need to be done outside of what we can do ourselves. I included the report that Railworks provided after this year's inspection. We do have a CIP for the rail spur, so that has about $248,000 in it currently. So we would use the money from that CIP to cover these repairs. There's quite a few different things that they list, so it was in the reports. You can see that there. The inspection that we do annually is out of our operations budget. These repairs that we are suggesting tonight would be out of that CIP. We did discuss this with the Public Works Committee. They said bring it to council for consideration. I can answer any questions there are about that. It's just kind of things to keep that in operating order for the users out in the industrial park. Otherwise, I'd look for a motion a second tonight to approve Resolution 2358, allowing us to hire Railworks to complete the repairs as outlined in the report following their inspection.
So in their report, they kind of have what the 10-year outlook as well. Does our current CIP, obviously our CIP would be short as is, but are we
Correct.
funding that properly to meet that, or is that something we need to address in the coming?
That would be a discussion for probably like a,
Budget.
yep, like a, what's after our council meeting? I'm blanking.
CIP.
Exec session, thank you.
yeah.
It's a
Yeah, we
really
did
hard
talk-
one, I couldn't remember.
Yeah, we did have a little bit of a discussion about it, and I think we were waiting for that discussion to happen during our budget season time.
Right. I mean, it is a good point, Rick. I mean, it's something that you as a council have to figure out. There's kind of two paths you could take. One thing that we've talked about is, do you have some kind of fee for the people that are actually using the rail spur? And so the ones that have benefit from it are the ones that help support the repair and maintenance of it? Or does the city consider it, an asset that should be supported by the entire city because it benefits the entire city, which then you'd keep it more coming out of your taxes from your residents. So that'd be something that, council will have to have a discussion about and decide which direction you'd prefer to go.
At committee, we talked about it, decided we'd discuss it during budget. Because there's different avenues we can take.
So we currently would have funding for this, and then a couple of years, kind of roughly a few more years based on kind of their rough budget for the next 10-year outlook. And then, after that, we'd have to kind of figure out where's it gonna come from there, so.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2358, allowing staff to hire Railworks to complete the repairs to the city-owned rail spur as outlined in the inspection report, not to exceed $31,545.
I'll second that.
Motion from Robin, second from Mike. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Thank you.
The BAC field lime replacement.
All right, so in our CIP for our parks this year, we did have some, at a line item for BAC improvements. One area that has been identified over the last couple of years is the lime on fields 1, 2, and 3. Field 4, or what we oftentimes call the Buzzards Field, already has this lime that I'm proposing on it. And there's also no warning track on field 4. So this project would incorporate adding new lime, so taking 2 inches off of the existing fields and adding in 2 inches of this red rock lime to kind of upgrade that surface. And then also adding the warning track onto field 4, something that field hasn't had. Some of the reasons that doing this would be an advantage or would be a plus for that, this particular material would allow for better drainage. So following rain events, you'd be able to go back to playing more quickly. It minimizes use of drying agents, so other things that you'd put down in the field to dry it, this would have a better ability to absorb rain, and you want to use as many other agents to help with that. Better traction, so just a better playing surface for players. It won't compact and get hard. We don't really have that problem right now. It gets pretty fluffy and soft, so it's more of a dust bowl right now, which is kind of really the biggest thing that we see a lot of is just when it is dry, that you start dragging that field and it is just a dust bowl down there. So, and one thing that the makers of this particular lime said is that the color contrast makes it better for the people watching the games because they can see the ball better, and probably the players too. So, and then like I said, we'd look to add a warning track on the field 4. We did get 2 bids for this project. One was from GMM Outdoors and one was from Ruck Excavating, so I have those listed here and included in the packet. We did discuss this project with Park and Rec Commission, and they did recommend it go to council for consideration. In the CIP for this year, we did have $75,000 allocated for these BAC facility upgrades. So we did utilize about 12,000 of that for the youth field additions that we already did. So we'd still have enough left to cover the cost of this field lime upgrade. So if there's any questions, I look to answer those. Otherwise, tonight I'd be looking for a motion and a second to approve resolution 2360. We'd hire GMM Outdoors to complete the BAC field lime replacement project for a price not to exceed $64,895.
When did they think they could do it, or when are we asking for them to do it?
So I was looking for a window probably the first couple of weeks of August, so it kind of falls between the end of the regular baseball season and fall ball. Both Ruck and G&M, when I asked them, could fit it into that time frame, so they both would be able to do that. So, yep. Yeah, we were kind of looking springtime at one point, and then with the late spring and that, I was like, well, that's not gonna happen now, because everybody wants to get in the fields and get going, so this is the next best option.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2360, allowing staff to hire G&M Outdoors for the BAC field lime replacement project for a price not to exceed $64,895.
I'll second that.
Motion from Becky, second from Mike. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Thank you.
Industrial clarifying coder.
Yes, so we have 3 industrial clarifiers at the wastewater facility. The third clarifier, the largest one, is the newest one. That was part of the 2017 upgrade. The 2 smaller clarifiers are part of the original facility. The mechanisms in those clarifiers were actually replaced back just before I started with the city, so about 2015. They were coated at that time. I estimate about 8 years for a coating. Can give or take depending upon what's in the wastewater that's going through that and that kind of thing. So we're coming to that. We're at about year 7 with that. Staff did notice last year when we took it down that we're starting to see some paint coming off, some flaking, and some rusting. So we moved that up 1 year here in the CIP with the idea that we want to keep that coating as intact as best we can, so we can extend the life of that mechanism, so we can get a full life out of that mechanism itself. We did get 2 quotes for that. You can see the 2 quotes we got are quite far apart. We did see a similar thing when we did the one domestic clarifier. We had, actually that one I had 3 quotes. 2 were fairly close on the lower end, and then 1 was quite a bit more on the top end.
What do you think's the reason for that?
So before, the reasoning was just the high-end quote they were going to completely tent it off. It was gonna be completely temperature controlled. So kind of, I would say, to the nth degree. And then they could do that, essentially they could coat it any time of the year. Where the lower end ones are gonna do it kind of during, maybe not now with humidity, but somewhere where the temperatures are more stable outside and they can just do it as is. So not quite taking it to that nth degree as far as a tent around and climate control and those kind of things, so. Yeah, that would be the difference.
I assume the one for 227,000 is not doesn't last 5 times as long?
My guess would be no, because they're similar products they'd be applying, so, it would be more of just their prep and what they would do is set up and to control that environment, so. We had, the one with domestic that was just done outdoors, we don't even, that one's not even covered. So that one had a decent result so far, so, I feel comfortable. If you're looking for it to last 50 years, that kind of thing, well, maybe you go to the nth degree, but I don't know if it's worth, 3-4 times the price to do that, so it's not gonna extend it that long, so that would be, I would say the fresh blast quote that we have here was more in line with what we saw, the two, lower end ones on our domestic clarifier, so makes sense to me. Let's see. We did discuss this at Public Works, so it was, said we should bring it forward to council for consideration. We did have money set aside in the CIP, and that was part of the CIP. It's been hard to kind of figure out where we're gonna sit with, the costs and how much should we plan for. We didn't necessarily wanna take it to get it engineered, because that'd be additional cost, and it's not required by PCA just for a recoating. We don't have to do that, so, trying to save a little bit on that part of it for this kind of a project, so. And with that, I can answer any other questions, or I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2361, allowing staff to hire Fresh Blast to complete the industrial clarifier 1 and 2 mechanism coating for a price not to exceed $62,675.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Motion from Rick, second from Robin. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Thank you.
Parkview Storm Station Rehab. Mr. Listen.
All right. Last one for this little group. So the Parkview Storm Station, a few years ago, it had kind of been left where it was no longer running. The pump wasn't running in the station, and we were experiencing a lot of issues with backup. So if you had a large enough rain event, you would get enough push from the actual gravity of that flow to get it to go out into the pond. But eventually it would start backing up, and then we'd have backups into the neighborhoods, and we'd have flooding. And after the water subsided, you'd have leaves and debris all over the cul-de-sacs in the street, and it was less than ideal. So staff did take the original pumps. We got them running. We've had that station working now for a couple of years. But those two pumps are both experienced, I mean, they're aged, they're from the 80s. So we've gotten our life out of those pumps. So staff did go out, worked with a couple of different pump suppliers, had them look at the station, and we also, along with needing to replace the pumps, the actual discharge piping was loose in the station. So every time a pump cycled, it would actually push the piping away from the wall, and then when it shut off, it would come back. So part of this project would be also to address that. We did get quotes from both Electric Pump and Minnesota Pump Works. So electric quote, and both of them, when we talked to them about it, we had, our biggest concerns were, one, a lot of leaf litter. So we get a lot of leaves from the street that go in that station, and they would blind the pump, and that's hard on the pump because it still wants to keep running because it thinks it needs to run, but it can't get any liquid pulled in. Can't get any liquid pulled in, so it just runs and runs and runs. So hard on the pump. And then if we're not moving the liquid, obviously we get that same situation, even though with the backing up in the street, even though the pumps are in there and operating. So wanted to see what their options were. Both kind of lean towards a chopper or grinder style pump. So instead of an open volute sucking all the debris in, they've got a grinder teeth that sits and it spins, and anything that comes in, it can grind it up. So we thought that would work really well with the leaves. Those suppliers agreed, so that's the direction we're kind of going at here. So as I stated, the pumps are from 1982, so they've kind of seen their useful life. So we'd be looking to upgrade both our pumps in our station and address that discharge piping issue. There's the two quotes, they're slightly different. One other issue that we had seen is the pumps themselves, the impeller would actually spin off of the pump. So that we've experienced that probably 3 or 4 times. And in talking with Electric Pump, their thought was, well, you don't have any check valves, which is common in a lift station. This one doesn't. So anything up to discharge pipe, when the pump shuts off, all that water runs back, pushes down, and then can actually spin the impeller backwards, which can then spin it off of the drive shaft. So that makes sense to us. I've seen that before in previous experiences. So when we talked with Minnesota Pump Works about that, we said, well, this is what Electric Pump is suggesting. They're suggesting a check valve to address that. They didn't feel it was necessary, so they didn't include it in their bid. So tonight, what I'm recommending is going with the quote from Electric Pump for kind of the reasons I have listed in there. It's a chopper style pump, so it'll grind up things like leaves. And they actually did bring the pump out and demonstrate it to staff, and staff were very impressed. It would chew up pop bottles, tennis balls, leaves, those kind of things. So it performed in their demonstration quite well. The Barnes pumps are actually American-made, so we like the idea that we can get parts in America. We don't have to worry about them having to be shipped and those kind of things, so we won't have that delay. So we like that concept. The Barnes pumps also have, lift station pumps where the power cord comes in, oftentimes it's potted, so they basically pour material in place that hardens and holds the cord and seals moisture out. These pumps actually have a bolt-on feature, so it's got a seal and then bolts on, so you can separate the power cord from the pump. And so when we remove it, we can just take the pump out. We don't have to pull the cord back from the panel and do all that fun stuff. So we like that feature as well. It should make things a little bit easier for operators when we have to switch pumps, or if we have to do any kind of maintenance, we can leave the cord hanging, so another advantage. Like I said, Electric Pump included the check valve. We did ask them, well, with the check valve, if it's cold enough and it would freeze, how would you address that? So they're going to drill a weep hole in so that it will slowly drain the pipe out, but it won't come back through the pump and spin the pump in reverse. So we thought that was a good solution for that as well. And then talked about the demonstration. So tonight, we do have a CIP money set aside, $50,000 in our Public Works budget for this stormwater infrastructure improvement. And then tonight I'll be looking for a motion and second to approve resolution 2362, allowing staff to proceed with the electric pump quote for the Parkview Storm Rehab project for a price not to exceed $46,000. That'll answer any other questions you might have.
So when you talk, when I think of a check valve, like I think of the one on my pump at home, and it requires a perfect seal, otherwise it doesn't work. So if we're sending chewed up tennis balls and things like that, would those all potentially be clear of all this? I mean, is this would,
Yeah, I mean,
if you got jammed in there, it wouldn't work.
yeah, we've got check valves on all our lift stations, so they pass rags and chewed up material all the time, and they can, yeah, it'll clear itself out and it'll reseat, so they're pretty bulletproof that way. Yep. Plus, it's a 4-inch line, so you get a bigger check valve, so you got a little more oomph to clear it and when it opens and closes. So, yep.
It's cool to get American made too when you can. So. I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2362, allowing staff to proceed with the quote from Electric Pump for the Parkview Storm Station Rehab Project.
I'll second it.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, we'll see you in a bit.
Yep, one more.
Administrator and staff reports, the change order number 1 for County Road 53 to Edgewood Trunk Water Main Improvements, AKA project number 4, Mr. Knutson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
I'm glad that you made that long enough so that you could walk from that side of the room.
There's
all
a
the way
method to my
over.
madness,
Yeah.
so I'm getting old and slower, so those titles are getting longer and longer. Tonight, in front of you, like the mayor said, we have a change order from Latour Construction for project number 4. It's actually 2 parts. The first part is a change from an open cut to a directional drill on our water main as it connects kind of close to the Energy Drive County Road 8 transition and goes up to County Road 52. Underneath the rail, both rail spurs, XL and Northern Metals have a rail spur out there, and the utilities that are buried there weren't in their location, and there was one additional utility that wasn't marked. We didn't have it in any of our pre-cons, didn't have it in any of our utility meetings ahead of time, so it was kind of sight unseen. And when we got out there and investigated, we had the utility contractors come out there and pothole in 4 different locations to actually find it, so we could see where it was at. And it was in conflict with us being able to open cut it, just enough where there wasn't a big enough corridor to come through there and open cut. Unfortunate, but it resulted in us looking to do a directional drill of 343 feet, I believe was the final number on that. The good thing is, because of the unit pricing of the contract, that was there, we already have the dollars, and the contractor is in agreement to honor the unit pricing that's already in the contract. The other portion of that is on the city side of, I mean, we're cities on both sides, but the residential side, the commercial side of Highway 10 as well, on the corner of Edgewood and First Street, where we're looking to connect our water main on both First and Edgewood. There was proposal for a sanitary sewer extension from the church, the new church property, into the corner lot over there. The property owner there is requesting the sanitary line be extended through Edgewood to serve the other part of the side of the property, as he's looking to split that parcel into 2 separate parcels for that. So we've been working back and forth. Again, the contractor is open to honoring the unit pricing on that as well, but it did result in a work outside of contract or a change order in the amount of just under $95,000 for the total project. So we do have contingency money set aside that we're comfortable using. We're also looking at it for projects 3 and 4, some of the unit pricing that were coming in. We're seeing some quantities that could be under. I don't want to bank on those being under, but we do have the contingency money as well to look at that. So when we look at the Edgewood property, acquiring the easement, we're still having a little bit of a hang up on the easement side, because we've got to change the size of the easement that's being proposed right now. So the hammers have been good to work with. We've been, as a matter of fact, I just got off the phone about 4:30 today, talking to Gary again on this project. So as discussed at Public Works Committee, serving that property seems to make a little bit more sense than cutting a check for the community, to get those parcels in a spot where they're served and maybe more marketable. And he's looking at putting them up for sale. He doesn't want to develop them, but he's hoping that somebody would look to acquire them for some sort of commercial development. So we're trying to work through that for kind of the greater good of that, even though it's going to cost us some money. But we've set aside the funds for it, and hopefully we could make something happen if you choose to move it forward. So with that, I can stand for any other questions you may have on the projects.
I'll bet you probably several times a year I get asked about why we don't, why doesn't the city put something down on that corner, Edgewood and First there, and this would definitely, especially if that's Gary's intention, that this would definitely go a long way to do that.
And we've looked at it to do something in future developments. Could there be served from a different angle? This isn't the most ideal way to serve it, but it's here and now versus speculation, what could happen 5, 10, 20 years. I mean, it's been sitting there, to your point, Rick, for many, many years with no movement. So this is an opportunity that's right in front of us, should we take it. I look over to Bank Street, what you guys allowed us to do on Bank Street to work with that property owner to help them out, kind of get them over the hurdle. You got 2 businesses in town that are going to really serve the community well. So we're hopeful that maybe something like this could come out of this one as well.
I'll make a motion to approve change order number 1 with Latour Construction for the County Road 53 to Edgewood trunk water main improvements.
I'll second.
Motion from Robin, second from Becky. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye. Aye. Opposed, carried. Before you leave the podium, I know there's a lot of questions in regards to the large pile of dirt on the south side of Highway 10. Could you just give us a little project update?
It's a project coming out of Park and Rec. It's a new slide hill.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
Just
Bring
kidding.
your own slide, or are we like
It's gonna be a ski
ski resort?
Just-
Oh, I love that idea.
It's actually a sewer force main. It's a lift station, so we wouldn't want to commingle a water slide in a tank there. But what it is, it's the big industrial park pump station. All of the infrastructure and projects 2 and 3 that are connecting over there are collecting that sanitary sewer into that big lift station that's going to force it underneath Highway 10 over to the wastewater treatment plant. So the hole has to be digged because, so big because that structure is about 40 feet. The bottom of it's about 40 feet underground right now. So to do that, to do it safe, you have to dig out so far. That's why the dirt pile is so large. So we actually had a meeting on site there today, and they're hoping yet this week to start working on the bottom foundation, to start building it out of the ground. So we'll start seeing some movement over there. So,
And will we start seeing movement on the other side of the highway?
they're working right now, we're working on the sewer force main on Central Avenue. Again, we're running into a few utility problems there, stuff being not where they said it was going to be and being high in one spot, low in another spot. Directional drilling, we were trying to directional drill that whole spot from Oakview down roughly to Dawson Court before it crosses County Road 24 to go to the wastewater treatment plant. And you only have to pothole a few areas to dig it up, make the connections, and then directional drill underneath, so you disturb as little amount of surface as possible. But with the utilities being so unpredictable, we're gonna have to open cut a few more areas. So that's taking place right now. Oakview likely won't be disturbed for another week or so, and then Bank Street and the parking lot, it'll be a couple more weeks before that. So we meet every week on project. We've got, and I give Julie a shout out, she helps us with all of our information going out and getting the mailings out. So again, we know your preference is to get way in front of it with everybody and keep the information going, so we're trying to do that. But so that's kind of a synopsis of that project as well.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
All right. SmartGov permitting software, Mr. Sanders. So you have to give him a little bit more time if you're gonna sit on the other side of the room.
I kept mine shorter than Phil's, so no. Thank you, Mayor, Council. Before you tonight, we have spent probably, it's been a few months discussing software. So we'd mentioned this previously to the council about that we were exploring options for online permitting. What would that look like? How would we go into that and doing some exploration? And this intent is to get us away from a lot of the paper filing that we have to do into the 21st century, where we can electronically connect to our Laserfish repository a little bit easier. Give our building official the tools that he needs to do things in the field electronically, so he could take a tablet or, you know, a laptop out there, have all the plans, so he doesn't have to mess with paper plans, to some of the administrative staff tasks of filing. Also, the goal behind this is to create more transparency with the public on their own permit process, that they can kind of automatically see where it's at, see where previous permits were. So as we've been exploring this, there are a number of companies that provide the service. And we started with a broad list at the staff level, and we kind of narrowed it down to two. There were a couple competing with each other, and you could tell they compete with each other because of how many times they both mentioned each other. Oh, we do this better, and the other one does this better. After staff kind of discussed this, we came to the decision that SmartGov, this is what we would be recommending. SmartGov is a provider that's backed by a company called Brightly. They have good security. It's a cloud-based system. It gives staff the ability to do what they need to, customization. It gives us the ability to connect to Laserfish. It will also allow Mark, again, to connect to what's called Bluebeam Review, which is something that will be budgeted for yearly, that will take out of some of our existing planning or building inspection services. The Bluebeam is kind of minimal in comparison to this cost, but it'll allow him to create custom stamps, things of that nature. It has good security. We have checked it out with Rob Hackler and with Councilman Hendrickson. They answered all the questions pretty readily. I think we took a pretty good comprehensive look at that. They integrate with ArcGIS as well, which we're continuing to ramp up and increase utilization and on the public side as well. So what the agreement would be for 5 years, which is kind of what they do, and then re-ups after that. They have a $500 increase each year in the budget that's kind of built in for this 5-year agreement. And you'll notice it says year 2 in the implementation piece. They prorate this first year through the end of to 12/31. And then it restarts at the beginning of each year. It's kind of nice because some companies do it based on when you sign up. They do it based on the calendar year, which is good for budgeting purposes. They prorated it, it's only a few $1,000s. Between the proration and their implementation fee, which they're also giving a discount on, it'd be $17,007.03 for 2023, and that includes the one-time cost of them doing a 6-month implementation. So it's a pretty robust 6-month long. At the end of that 6 months, we would do a beta launch, flush out any bugs, and then we would launch it publicly following that. The legal has reviewed and approved of the master agreement, and then that 17,007 would come out of administration CIP reserve. We checked with Greg and finance on that, and we do have ample amount in the CIP reserves to do something like this. So annual subscription fee would start in 2024 at $16,492 with an annual increase of $500 per year. This also includes not just building permitting, but it also includes the ability to do planning. So a lot of our land use permits as well can be taken into the same system. So if somebody wanted to, from the public, see everything that was involved in their property from years past, the goal would be for them to eventually be able to see all of those permits in one place, in one portal. So the workflows there would be useful, and then also on some of our code compliance, it would have all of that included as well. So it's a broad range of things that would assist the city in becoming a little more streamlined and transparent. So with that, we're seeking a motion and a second to adopt resolution 2363 for us to sign subscription and master subscription agreement for smart permitting software. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Make a motion to adopt resolution 2363, authorizing staff to sign a subscription quote and master subscription agreement with SmartGov.
Second?
Motion from Robin, second from Rick. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye. Aye. Opposed, carried.
So we'll get 500 new homes and 15 new businesses by next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. BCC gym renovation. Mr. Gevens.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight in front of you is looking at the possibility of a gym renovation at the community center. The community center gym has definitely served its purpose. It's been host to lots of events, programs, fitness, group fitness activities, and just drop-in recreation. The space has definitely seen its wear and tear. It's one of the, staff has identified it as one of the higher priorities of the building that definitely needs to get renovated and updated, not only from cosmetic standpoints, but to help out operationally. Start with the floor. The flooring, I have been told that it's not original, but it's so old that I could not find when exactly it was swapped out. It has bubbles in it, it has tears, all the lines are basically faded off of it. It's seen its life, and it's time to get a new one. With that, at the same time, we'd be looking at getting some basketball hoops that are mounted to the ceiling and are motorized that can go up and down. So when we have events and other types of non-basketball types of recreation going on, we can lift those out of there. Right now, we currently have some that they're basically outdoor basketball hoops that sit on the floor. They look terrible, but they're also a big risk hazard. We've had people running into them and trip into them, and it's not a very ideal situation for a community use gym. And then the last piece to that, to kind of tie everything together, would be some fresh paint. The walls are multicolor with all the use and pulling out old radiators and other things throughout the years. And then the ceiling has significant peeling going on within the beams and also the HVAC stuff. So the floor would be a plastic floor. It is similar to the floor that is currently in there, but it's a newer version of it. So it's a European company. It's a multi-purpose floor that would hold up well with the
kind of the wear and tear that our building takes with lots of special events, with adventure zone, with drop-in recreation, with holding fitness classes, lots of different types of things that happen in there. I mean, just today we had a senior center luncheon in there. And so that floor is really good because it's good for recreation, it's good for athletics, but yet it also is good for wheeling around tables and chairs and just getting lots of use. The other nice thing with that floor too is if anything rips or tears, that floor can actually be patched. And then it has about a 30-year life expectancy, and at the end of that 30 years, basically they kind of peel what they call the pad. They peel the pad off and they lay down a fresh new one, and away they go. The other nice thing too is they can paint new lines on it. So on here right now we're proposing basketball lines, volleyball lines, and pickleball lines. If there's other activities that kind of spur up, we can add lines to it relatively easy. They just come in and paint them on. Excuse me, rather than us just kind of putting down floor tape and all the adhesive and other things that kind of are left with that. As I mentioned, the motorized basketball hoops, they're a key turn, lower them and raise them. It would actually extend the gym floor a little bit more because with that hoop hanging, we can get more space closer to the wall, so we can get an actual closer to a full court basketball court. And in the bid, they also have on there that there would be install of mats on the walls underneath the hoops, so that if people are coming in for layups and things like that, they'd have something to kind of cushion instead of running right into the wall. The two bids on the painting, just for clarification, would be the one is, let me get to it here. The one from HPC Group is the removal of the paint from the ceiling with sandblasting and scraping and other means to get the paint off of the ceiling on top of all the painting of the walls and the ceiling. The other two from Fresh Coat and then from Midwest Surface Restoration, they would work in conjunction with each other. Fresh Coat would do the painting, and then Midwest Surface Restoration would do the removal of the existing paint from the ceiling and all of the ductwork and HVAC equipment that is up in the ceiling. So that's kind of a clarification on those bids. The bid for the hoops in the floor through H2I Group is all through Sourcewell, so it's government bidding, and that's what they ended up pulling together for their bid for this project. So with that, this would come out of the gym renovation CIP, and then on there, I've also asked for a $5,000 contingency, and what that would be is just to cover any sort of costs of things that are unknown at this point. The biggest one being the removal of the old floor and then seeing what that concrete subfloor looks like underneath it. You know, don't know until we actually peel that up. So that would kind of give us the ability to do any sort of fixes that might pop up with the discovery of that. So with that, I can answer any questions that you might have.
So the 133,650 is for the hoops, the floor, and the painting.
Correct,
That's the whole project.
correct.
And then what is the downtime for all of this?
It's about a 4-week window.
So like a whole month, the gym will be displaced?
Correct. The goal would be to, and the reason why it's coming forward today is the goal would be to get it scheduled pretty much right after Labor Day with the hopes that everyone's back in school. It's still warm enough out where Adventure Zone, group fitness, other classes that typically use the gym could go outdoors and find other activities. It's probably the slowest of our gym time because of back to school and because it still is nice outside. So it's probably the time frame that has kind of the least disruption to it.
Do we have any other use for the basketball hoops that we have, where the wheel away ones, the portables?
We've talked about it. In my opinion, the backboards and the rims are really nice. Obviously, the bases and the structures, I mean, they're basically Band-Aid together right now with the hopes that we can get this approved and we can then get through the rest of the summer and get something new in. But we would like to explore the opportunity to see if the backboards and the rims could be utilized, like either in our parks or for different use, because those are still really nice.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2366 for completion of the community center gym renovation.
I'll second.
Motion from Robin, second from Becky. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're the BCC camera project too.
Yes. All right, good evening again. This one is, staff was approached by Diamond Leaf, who is our partner with the generator that has been recently added over at the community center. And they have interest in us supplying a exterior camera out at that space to monitor the generator for vandalism, tampering, but as well as making sure that it's actually, fired up and everything like that. They do have their monitoring and stuff, but it's just another piece of monitoring that goes with that. In that conversation, we've explored what that would actually take. And with that, we're proposing a 360 camera that would be mounted over on that corner of the facility to not only monitor the generator, but also monitor a lot of that outdoor space that's over there that's starting to become utilized pretty heavily. And with the addition of a new camera, the one thing that IT has identified is that our server is going to need to be upgraded, because if we just threw that new camera onto our current server, we'd be down to about 7 days worth of stored footage instead of the 14 or longer that we typically use. Not only just because of the additional camera, but also the higher resolution and other things that come with that would increase that server space. So Diamond Leaf has committed that they will cover the cost of the wiring and the hardware for the new camera. We are still in discussions though to see if they have any sort of appetite with helping us to do the server upgrade as well. To what percentage that is, that's still being negotiated, but we're hoping that at least a portion of that would be covered with that. Understanding obviously that, the community center is gonna benefit from having a larger server just because we're gonna expand our camera use throughout the future. So total cost of that project is $5,725, and as I mentioned, the wiring and the hardware of the cameras would be covered by Diamond Leaf. And then we would then be covering the rest of the project, which would be that server upgrade, with the hopes that they're gonna also cover a portion of that as well. So with that, I can answer any questions.
So who would all have access to that camera then? I would imagine Diamond Leaf would be accessing through our server to that camera?
It would be strictly us. We've talked with Diamond Leaf about that. It would be strictly us, and then if there's things that they would need footage of, then obviously we can then provide that to them. But the actual real-time monitoring and viewing of that would still be done with city staff.
Does this fulfill any warranty process that they have with the generator? Like, why they ask at that generator?
It doesn't.
Just at that location? I mean, we have
Doesn't
several.
the generator have a security fence around it?
No.
Because we do on this one here, don't we?
This one does.
Yeah, it's like a privacy fence, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's currently no.
They own that generator. Diamond Leaf owns the generator. We just have a user agreement with them. That's why they want it for their security.
Okay, that would make more sense, I thought. Okay.
Correct. Thank you.
So, server, this is probably, everything you hear about going to the cloud, but this is one of those instances where you want the server on site because it's video and it's a lot of traffic, but I'm assuming the cost here, I mean, a normal server doesn't normally cost as much. I'm assuming the cost in this case is mainly gonna be storage. How much over spec have we done this? I mean, because right now we're saying we're at capacity, we can't add another one. Are we gonna be at this spot again, or how much have we built on extra to, you know, are we 20%, do we have 20% room, or how much extra do we have here?
Sure. Do you have that exact number?
I don't have that number, but Rob gave us that for growth. I think we could add 12 cameras on top
Yeah.
of this.
We could add 12 more?
I think that was the number, but not 100% sure. I know there's growth, but I think it's at least 12 additional cameras on top of this one.
Okay.
Yeah, we were slated to probably look at a server upgrade within the next year to two. And obviously the addition of the camera immediately is going to push that over the edge. But yes, the server would be purchased with the idea that there is still many cameras that are gonna need to be added on that complex, especially with a lot of the new additions that are taking place on the exterior part of the building.
Yeah, that's where I was going. So when do we, when will we know how much, Diamond is willing to participate, or how, or I guess when do we get the answer for that? Is still, you said still in discussion. Or is this one of those things we would just approve it to pay for the project, and then if whatever they contribute, gravy on top?
We know they're paying 18 something, or whatever the camera hard cost is. And that's why we're asking to pay this amount, knowing they're with reimburses whatever we can get from them. We didn't want to be too greedy, but I did get an email back from the owner of Diamond Leaf that said, happy to have a conversation with you and would like to work together to make this work. I think we'll get something. Hopeful 50% of the server.
That'd be nice.
I'll ask for all, but.
Yeah. All right, well, I'll make a motion to approve engaging Marco and Dell for completion of the community center camera project.
I'll second that.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Thank you.
Community Park Play Equipment and Resurfacing. Mr. Kua.
Before Josh gets started too, tonight, these next three items are related to the ARPA projects that we've talked about in the past. The archery is not yet ripe enough to bring it back to you. So we broke down the other projects separately. That's why you'll hear about them separately here. So just wanted to make that clarification.
Thank you, Greg, for queuing that up. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So for tonight, we're discussing the community park play equipment and surfacing in the newly minted community park adjacent to the Becker Community Center. Those in the community might be familiar with that park as it has kind of earlier phases of the build out of pickleball courts, full court basketball run, as well as the splash pad. So we've got some further phases that'll be coming before you this evening with some different opportunities. The project that I'm discussing tonight with you, and would love to get any feedback or questions that you have, involves two resolutions. The second resolution is really contingent on the first passing, so we'll start with that, and that's actually the play equipment at Community Park. So as you're all aware, there was the 10-acre development adjacent to the community center where we received $165,000 in parkland dedication, which is customary to be used at the nearest park. So it seems with the location of Community Park and all the wonderful amenities there that play equipment would be kind of that next natural step to be added to that particular property. So we've talked at length with Parks and Rec Commission, and we've taken a couple of different design concepts. Really within that 165 budget, we're looking at 125 of it being for play equipment. And the remaining 40,000 would be for like concrete surrounds, kind of creating the ADA border, whether it was engineered wood fiber or poured in place surfacing, having that concrete surround. That would be that additional 40,000 within the 165 would be utilized for those concrete surrounds, any irrigation repairs that might be necessary, and then perhaps some interconnectivity of pathways should it warrant or fall within that budget. So we engaged Weber Recreation, which is Miracle Playground equipment. We have a number of examples within our park systems of Miracle. Most recently is the playground replacement at Carl E. Johnson Park. We did also reach out and work with Flagship Recreation, which is landscape structures. Great Minnesota company, has really great play equipment, but unfortunately the the bang for the buck in that, within our budget. We just couldn't get enough quality play experience to really push them over the edge, versus, the Miracle Weber Recreation equipment. So, after, we've included a number of renderings of, the different play experiences. There's some really exciting ones. One is a Reflex, the Hover Net. These are new products from Miracle that we don't have in any of our current playgrounds. And because of the age groups that use it, it seems like a lot of ADA access. A lot of the equipment is 2 to 12 rated. No one is mandated to provide 2 to 5 play equipment, but this does have a lot of features for the 2 to 5 age groups, as well as some really exciting playground experience for the older kids as well. And it's nice having the splash pad there too, because the 2 to 5 groups really do enjoy going through the spray park. So as I mentioned, the funding, $125,000 would be for the play equipment, and then the remaining 40 would be for the pathway surrounds and some irrigation repair if needed in place there. So really that is the resolution 2367 for engaging Weber Recreation Design for playground addition to community park from the park CIP. All that parkland dedication of 165 has been received by the city and funded into our CIP. So that's where we'd be proposing to draw it from. So with that particular resolution, there would be a follow-up, but we can get to that point if we do wish to proceed. So I'd love to answer any questions that you have about the project or get your thoughts.
How about timing for the project?
They have a couple of windows. They couldn't 100% guarantee it, but they thought in September there were a couple time slots that we could possibly get into.
And that would it would wrap up before the end of the year then, or would it be a start this year, finish next year?
It would finish this fall yet. Very similar to, I believe, the Carly Johnson project that we did with, we actually started that in October and finished it. So I would be pretty confident if we were able to get one of those time slots that we would be able to execute the park this fall.
And by September, the splash pad's pretty much shut down, so, or maybe a few warm days here and there, but that's probably a good time to, you don't have a bunch of kids running around construction equipment. So.
Correct, yep.
All right.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2367, engaging Weber Recreational Design for the playground replacement, well, I don't know if it's a replacement project, at the community park from the park CIP.
Second.
Motion from Rick, second from Robin. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Thank you very much. So,
Oh, wait.
sorry.
Oh, sorry. Continue.
So yeah, this kind of
I was gonna make him go right into the concrete thing, but
two-part resolution, or two-part RCA. This would appreciate the support for that project. I think it'll be really exciting as we kind of build out this really cool campus park. But one of the considerations that actually leadership brought up as we were kind of proposing this, and the opportunities with the ARPA funds, and really dedicating a little bit more higher ADA access and safety and accessibility. We don't have any poured in place rubber surfacing at any of our parks. They're traditionally engineered wood fiber. So our team was asked to investigate what it would look like in the cost of adding this poured in place rubber surfacing. So that's the next resolution, 2368, that we're addressing currently. Is we'd worked with Miracle, and this has been very similar pricing with when we were speaking with Flagship Recreation for landscape design. So we came to a budget. Well, actually, going back slightly, Greg had applied for a grant for ADA access that this would fall within. We don't know if we're going to receive that grant, but it would cover up to $100,000. So we're kind of presenting this resolution with maybe a decision to be made. If we get the grant, obviously all those funds would get applied to that. If not, we would be looking at utilizing the American Rescue funds. So the quote for doing the poured-in-place surfacing is $81,955. If we were to just do engineered wood fiber in place of that, it would be $12,150. So really the upgraded cost difference is $69,805. If you've been to parks that have this, they're really high quality surface. They say 15 to 20 years is probably the average life cycle of that particular. So that would generally put us in line with the lifetime of the playground equipment too. So they kind of run concurrent to one another. But as we're kind of building out this generational park with our Adventure Zone access and Becker area senior center, having really that nice finished surface that is really easy to access the play equipment, work your way across, was an opportunity that we wanted to at least present to council. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. It's a pretty straightforward resolution on this particular one, but love to get any feedback or questions that you might have.
With 20 years, that's a lot of wood chips and,
Do you want wood chips and?
no,
The-
so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you
With
know
the
when
splash
we'll
pad?
hear on the grant?
I believe it was the end of July.
Oh, okay.
Assuming the timing would be the same as the other part of the project.
That is more weather dependent, so if we get into late October, you can't have it freeze. So that could very well be something, that part could move to spring. But the apparatuses would be in this year. If we get a nice fall, it can go in.
This is that like rubbery surface kinda, it's not super soft, but it is softer. You fall on it, it's not like concrete.
Correct, yep. It's got a nice give to it, meets all the fall requirements from parks associations.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2368 to add the pour-in-place rubber surfacing. So I suppose today we'll make the motion to do it with the ARPA funds, and then if the grant comes through, we'll apply the grant for it instead. That's, okay.
I'll second that.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
New pavilion for community park. Mr. Knutson.
Oh,
I had to pick up my pace.
speak of light going across here.
Walker.
In addition to a lot of the stuff that Josh just referenced and some of the exhibits that were referenced there as well, one of the things that has been discussed for quite some time is a pavilion at the community park. It does a couple of things. One, probably the top on everybody's radar is shade for folks playing out there. Another thing it does, by looking at this, you can see the illustration that it would call out a couple of restrooms and a couple of changing rooms in the facility, as well as a little, I'm not really calling it a kitchen, but maybe a concession area, future proposed, that we could, do something to generate a few dollars out there. We would just put picnic tables similar to the one back here, coated metal picnic tables, put like 4 of them underneath the structure. The estimate that we're working with calls out for a 6-foot sidewalk all the way around the structure as well. And then some of the connectivity that Josh has talked about, we would look to connect the pavilion itself, now that the play structure is in place. How do you connect the pavilion with a walking path to a play structure, to the pickleball, basketball court, to the parking that was in place on Birdie Lane, and then the easy access on the north side of the parking as well. So kind of like a handprint out there that if I'm in wheelchair, walker, crutches, or just on foot, I can get everywhere to every amenity within the park and still have some green space to work with. So that's kind of the genesis that we looked at for this pavilion. It would be positioned approximately in between the basketball court and the fence that was put up on the north side of the parking lot. So if you're sitting in the open air space, you would have complete view of every amenity that would be at the park. So I could capture some shade, but I could also see if I've got several children playing on different events or different activities, I could have access to all of that. So as we started putting the numbers together, This is not the best time of year to start asking for bids from contractors. There's a lot of our folks are really busy. The reason we're bringing it in right now is a couple of our primary contractors who have been low bid on several projects, Lincoln Builders and Cornerstone Concrete, were getting back to us and would give commitments that they could get the structure at least in place. RUC is also able to get sanitary services and water stubs into there. So absolute worst case scenario, if this goes forward, we could get the structure put in place, even if we don't do the full finish as far as framing in the bathrooms, the changing rooms, or the concession area. We could at least get shade out there and concrete out there, and then in the fall, look to continue the construction portion of that. Along with that, I do have requests out for bids from other contractors. I feel good about that because some of our low bidders are the low bid right now. There's a couple that I've not worked with that are still good, and it keeps us within the budget that we're looking at. So all of this is being sourced material-wise all locally, and most of the labor that would be winning the low bid are the local contractors that want to step up and make this project work as well. So I think it could do a lot to tie the whole project together. And again, we're just trying to carry that theme of that community center and this community park being a very multi-generational facility. With the addition of what's going just north of that, we think the activity is really going to increase out there, so you're going to see a lot of foot traffic. So with that, hopefully we're kind of showing what the vision is for that facility. But if you have any other questions or want more details on this, please let me know. But I did put a request in here on a dollar not to exceed. Should you move forward, we would use Park and Rec Commission as the conduit to run all the materials, all of the examples, all of the final bids through that, so they have final input and say on what we're doing out there.
So tonight you're just asking for approving to go out for bids, and then you'd bring that back at a later date, and that would be the final decision once that would get us concrete
Yeah,
numbers.
if you're comfortable, I mean, ideally, if we're giving approval to do the project not to exceed this dollar amount, and we can work through Park and Rec to, on the contractor, like I said, if you were to give me the go-ahead right now, Lincoln Builders would slot me in. He's saved 3 weeks this summer that he'll slot us in to do the structural work for the facility. We've got permit plans being drawn by Country right now. Our building official is ready to look at those when those come through, but there's moving parts that would come on this. So that's why I put a number not to exceed in there. If you give us the go-ahead out of this, these would all come from the American Rescue Funds, and we would work on any of the finishes, changes, or process as we go forward through Park and Rec, so it doesn't have to come back to a council meeting, so we could move somewhat swiftly on this to get something put in place yet this year. If you're not comfortable and we need to bring it back differently, by all means, obviously, we would do that as well.
Is your hesitation because there's only one bid?
No, I was more or less looking for clarification. Yeah, it's, so it's not something that's where we normally would give and say, okay, go out and get bids, bring them back here. This is, as long as you can keep it under this number, we're giving you the go-ahead tonight.
Right. And with that, it's not in effect that we're gonna try and skimp on the project, you know, oh, you gave me this and we didn't do any restrooms, we didn't do any of that stuff. It's with the intention that this is gonna be the full bid. And if it wasn't for Lincoln Builders or Cornerstone giving me those key bids and RUC, those folks have typically won most of our bids as it comes through there. So I really have a high level of confidence. Snuffy's Landing is the most recent structure we did, and Lincoln Builders beat out 3 other bids on that project. It's much smaller than this one, but that's what we're looking to do. Could we get something going? If it's moving too quick, understand that, and we can go back through that bid process and get several bids on this. I've still got calls out, like I said, to at least 2 other contractors on pretty much every line item that we're looking at, so we can review that. But even if these are the low bids on this, we can pull this project in on that number not to exceed with the amenities in the park.
Right.
And Lincoln Builders specifically, they've done at least 2 projects for us at the golf course too. I know they were low bid on those too.
They just finished the railing project out there. They did the deck project out there. They did some structure work for us and re-roofs too, so.
Does this fill the whole complex then? I mean, I'm trying to imagine the play set area, this pavilion. There can't be much left.
Right there.
Uh-oh.
During the budget cycle, there'll be something else that would be considered and put in front of you. It's not a big feature, but it would be a nice enhancement to the feature. But you may or may not participate in it, but for the most part, a lot of the big items would be put in place here. I don't know if you've had time to look at the CIP that's there, so
No, I didn't.
that's part of you'll see that at the exec session as we start the budget cycle. and
Just
working
keep
on
them
that.
coming at
But
us tonight.
it's minor. This one, if, to your point, Mayor, if this was the last thing, you said, that's it, this is what we want out there and we're not doing anything else, I think you'd have a very complete complex. And I think people would look at that. I think it's gonna be a hub of your city. It's very visible, and I think it's gonna be very highly used by many different generations out there, so. I mean, don't get me wrong, Chris has some stuff that he's adding after this and that's more of that connectivity and bringing the seniors into play with this as well.
Yep.
So,
Very in favor for that, yep.
so it was just a lot of stuff. That's why we broke it down, because we all have a lot of different things moving right now. So we tried to break it down so it wasn't one of us up here. So Chris, Josh, and myself just kind of split this up and said, can we each take a part of it? Because there's so many moving parts to get the bids and get people and get the contacts back, so.
I'll make a motion approving resolution 2365, authorizing staff to gather bids and construct a pavilion at Becker Community Park.
I'll second.
Motion from Robin, second from Becky. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Becker Area Senior Center improvements, Mr. Lisson.
Last but definitely not least, just throw that in there. So tonight, part of our ARPA fund discussion, one area that came up that needed maybe some additional attention was the Becker Area Senior Center, which we have moved from City Hall over to the community center. In the project that we've listed here, kind of the goal was to give a little bit more of a prominent presence to the Basque over there. Part of that would be some exterior signage that would do that, and then also some connectivity and then some fencing to kind of establish their area separated from the parking lot and make truly connectivity from parking on one side into where they go in and then also over to the community park. So kind of finishing off that connection so they really become a full part of that whole area. We kind of broke this down into kind of 4 areas that I listed in the RCA. So part of it was the fencing, the sidewalk connection, and then we made an allotment for potentially some hard surface, so maybe a little patio area to expand where they could have some outdoor furniture and enjoy that exterior space. If you've been by there recently, staff did remove the fence that was there, removed the little play structure that was there, and then we filled that in and leveled that off. So we've kind of started this process already. Then we'd also the fence, and then because there's some light poles in place that we don't want to move and don't want to not have, the fence would follow the curb line, but the sidewalk would jog a little bit to go around that. So we did include some rock to go around the area between the sidewalk and the curb. We didn't want to leave that as grass because it wouldn't grow very well and be kind of a maintenance headache. So we would fill that in with rock just to kind of finish that area off. And I did have a very technical drawing I included with it, so you can see kind of what my idea was there. I did use a ruler, so the lines were fairly straight. We'd also, Josh had suggested that you could go on a computer and make fancy demos for signage. That was my best attempt. I spent a few minutes on it and I just got a little frustrated, but I did get it to even tilt a little, so it kind of looks right. So that would be, we have a local person that does some cutouts, so we get some metal cutouts, have them powder coated, and then have them mounted kind of off of the surface of the building. So kind of a nice way to identify that this is the space for the Becker Area Senior Center, very visible from the parking lot. When people come in, they would see it. So it would be a nice addition. And the final piece of this whole project would be, Josh has identified a door that would be kind of become the separate entrance for the Bass. So members that are using that could use this space, enter this area separately. They wouldn't have to go through the main entrance and check in at the main desk. They could go through their entrance here and sign in, and so that they were at the Becker Area Senior Center. So it was identified that the door would need to be replaced, so we included some money for that. And then they would also need some computer hardware in place so they could scan in, so they could be tracked for silver Silver
Sneakers.
sneakers, yes, thank you. So those are the kind of the parts of this upgrade project. Again, the funding for this would come from the American Rescue Fund, Plan Act funds that the city has in place.
Would the scanning in only be available during hours of operation at the BCC?
Yes,
Okay.
I was thinking yes, but I wanted to confirm.
Nice.
So that kind of listed the kind of general costs. So we're looking for a motion and a second tonight to approve resolution 2359 to allow us to use the ARPA funds to do the Becker Area Senior Center upgrade. And we kind of listed a price not to exceed there. And with that, I would answer any other questions you might have.
Is there any other funds left in this? Because I would love to see like a weatherproof awning of some sort by the door, like a canopy otherwise. Just thinking of like the pace in which they enter and to have to swipe their card. If it's raining or something like that, it might be able to keep them a little bit drier or out of the weather elements.
So the exterior door, they'd be able to access that, and then they go inside and there's another door. And so their scanning would actually occur after they enter the outside door.
Which door are they utilizing? It's not the one that's connected to their space?
It is, but it goes from you go, yeah. This is a team effort, yeah, by all means.
Doing great. So there's, as you're approaching from that north side, you have the door that goes into the kitchen directly. And then just about 8 paces to your right, there's a door that goes into the effective senior center. There is also another door that comes from their patio into the senior center. But the entrance door we're identifying is just to the right as you would approach from the kitchen door. And that one, we actually use it for some concession storage right now, but we could make like a really cool mudroom out of it. So when you come in, there'd be places to, hang jackets, and that's where we'd put that terminal for checking in. Is there, you might have a photo of it.
I don't have a photo of
So the
it, but you can
glass-
see where it would
You
be.
kind of see enough.
Like the door you're thinking is,
Yeah, that's the
There.
door I'm thinking right there.
this door is right here. Kind of enters in and then goes into the space.
I've never been in that door.
I hadn't been told 2 weeks ago. So. We had discussed awnings, different style. We talked about ones possibly mounted to the building that could come out. We've also talked if we added like a patio, like we were saying here, you could add individual furniture that would have umbrellas that you could put up and have shade that way. So we'd be open to anything, I guess, but it has been discussed. We didn't proceed with anything mounted to the building because we weren't sure. Okay, you put the sign up here and see that. What space do you have left for an awning? Do we want to commit to something that's mounted on the building? Is it better to have individual pieces that you can kind of move around and change depending upon the season or what the temperature of the people using it are at the time? So I guess that part we kind of put on hold for the moment.
Well, I was thinking of the entrance was a different door, and therefore I thought the canopy would
Oh, yeah, I see what
provide
you're saying.
entrance during the weather
Yep.
inclement times. And then it would also just say Becker's, versus cutouts being put on the building.
Not to speak out of line, but we could do that as an alternate to the signage that's there, maybe look at an awning over that door with the signage on the awning like you're referencing. And with a price not to exceed, maybe an either or. So maybe an alternate option.
It just gives it a different vibe, I think, and look versus your boring cement. No, like,
You're looking at the wrong guy
Want it to pop.
for aesthetics.
How's that pop?
I'm functionality.
You would still be more interested on the door facing the north, though, not the door that we're talking about as being the new entrance door.
well,
To the north, if you put it over that, I can see what you're saying. It would say that on there, it'd stand out. If we put it on the other door, you're not gonna see it as easily. It's kind of more tucked away than as you get into the garage space.
I don't know, I'd have to like visually see it. I feel like I'm trying to imagine that door.
If I could just jump in for a moment, when we were thinking about this, we were kind of thinking of a large-scale awning off of the building. As we went out on the site and saw the way that the sun passes over the building, a lot of the high-use times, it's actually quite shaded in that area until it gets to the opposite side of the building later in the afternoon. And what we've just seen historically from the use of that, it's usually a lot of morning time. So we chose not to dedicate a lot of monetary resources on the awning side just because it was naturally getting a lot of shade during that time.
Yeah, and my awning comment was not for pure shade, it was.
Storefront.
Yeah, increment, storefront, that's a great.
I think the idea of having a place to hang coats and take off messy boots and stuff is probably something they would appreciate.
Yes, instead of entering right into their space.
Right. Right.
This is just kinda neat to see the evolution of this, cause we think of, you know, I mean, we've been on council long enough to remember when there wasn't a senior center.
Yeah.
And, you know, the discussions of it, and then they were over here using the borrowed space, and it was great at, you know, I mean, it was, you know, if you have nothing, it's better than nothing. I mean, they could use it most weeks of the year, but when we would have elections and things like that, I mean, they had to, you know, move the stuff, and so it was never really their space. It was, you know, it was always kind of felt like borrowed space, and, you know, and noise and things like that. And then when we moved them over, you know, to the, community center, you know, it was a dedicated space. It was nice. It was, I mean, we had gone through a lot of different, you know, I mean, we had a banker in town approach us with one of their properties, you know, wanted us to buy it for,
Sure.
it was a lot of money. We, you know, I mean, just lots of discussions, so it's kinda nice to see the
Evolve.
evolution of this, yeah, and then now, you know, this kind of, I
Finishes
won't
it
say
off.
completes, but it kinda does. I mean, it's, you know, right now, you still have to go through the community, and now it's a dedicated, you know, that's what they've asked for all along, is a dedicated space, and now it's an actual, it has or will have the actual, whatever the
By
look.
all the things that you have allowed us to do, you've really made that community center a community space. I mean, you're gonna cover every age group from the little kids up to their grandparents. They're gonna all have kind of their spot there that is kind of their space, so. Yeah, it's really, it's come a long way. It'll be a really cool space. Do you want to look to proceed as presented? Do you want us to come back with something with an awning before we go that direction, or do you know, it's not to exceed, I mean, we could look at options versus,
I'm
you know,
not so
instead of
sure
this kind of lettering, we
Not
could
so
look at.
sure we need an awning there, because like Josh said, it's on the north side, so the sun doesn't even hit it till late afternoon.
She's talking about the door awning.
Yeah, I know, but even that door, all you do is walk through that door, and then you use your key on the inside door, right?
Once you're inside.
Yes.
Just trying to make the space look pleasing to the eye, but I don't think you need to bring it back. Maybe if
We can look at a possible option, maybe email it out to you guys so you're aware, and if it's something we've seen, and
Yeah, nice furniture and umbrellas would look nice in the summer too. Pop a color and a geranium.
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 I'll buy the geranium. I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2359, allowing staff to use ARPA funds to complete the improvements to the Becker Area Senior Center for a cost not to exceed $42,075.
I'll second that.
Motion from Robin, second from Mike. Those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Geraniums
carried.
by Robin.
Geraniums by Robin.
Thank you.
Thank you. Consent agenda, Mr. LaRude.
Mayor Bertram, city council members, tonight's consent agenda items include the hiring and termination report for the Becker Community Center Revised, Public Works, and Pebble Creek. Approve the 2023 liquor license renewals, and adopt Resolution 23-64 accepting a donation in the amount of $3,500 from the Becker Alliance for Freedom Days fireworks. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda?
I'll second.
Motion from Mike, second from Becky. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Payment of the bills.
Motion to pay the bills?
Second?
Motion from Rick, second from Robin. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Does council have anything else for the betterment of Becker? If not, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Motion from Mike, second from Rick. Those in favor can state aye. Aye. We are adjourned at 6:24 PM.